So just wanted to give you a quick background. I'm Sanjay. I'm Chief Technology and Product Officer for Yapstone. We are basically a full stack payment processing company. And what we do, we specifically focus primarily on marketplaces to just enable marketplaces from an end-to-end perspective. So I have a bunch of slides. I'm going to skip through some because I just got heads up that on the timing, and I want to reserve more of the conversation for more of a conversation. But just to a very, very quick overview, marketplaces been around. I think Craigslist was probably the best example, probably used too many times, so I'm not going to spend too much time. But I think the main thing that, what we realize as we work with marketplaces is what payments really brings into that ecosystem is not only connecting the seller and the buyer, but also bringing all kinds of additional value-added things. And one of the main ones is trust and safety. Like, how do you really make a marketplace trustworthy? And essentially, payments essentially enables that. And I think Craigslist founders probably did not have monetization as their first goal. So that's why no criticism for them, because they created a community effect. But one of the things that Craigslist does definitely create a big challenge is by not enabling payments, the trust and the reliability of the information is very subjective. And so that's been one of the major challenges that we do see. And by enabling payments, there's a lot more that you can do in your overall ecosystem. So again, as I mentioned, Yapstone, we're really enabling marketplaces, and our current focus and a lot of depth of experience that we've really had right now is in these large vacation rent places, HomeAway, Expedia. If you've ever rented anything on HomeAway, most likely the payment processing went through our ecosystem. And what we do for HomeAway is the entire value chain of onboarding those homeowners in multiple geographies, processing the payments that any traveler is making, and then also dispersing funds out back to the homeowner. So that's a quick overview on Yapstone. Platform-wise, there's a lot of stuff that happens, again, to enable payments, and there's been a lot of theme here today about fintech enabling your marketplace. And when you look at the overall ecosystem, it's not just about plugging in a simple API from any of the payment processors like Stripe or Adyen to enable payments. That's maybe where you start. But as you mature your marketplace, the real-time risk decisioning, the fraud monitoring, how you manage chargebacks, refunds, that whole experience of enabling that consumer to interact with your marketplace becomes pretty complex. And so you have to think about all those things. So you very quickly graduate from taking just the basic payment to eventually having to deal with this whole ecosystem that relates to the consumer. But then it's also about how do I disperse those funds back out to all the folks that are providing that inventory for your marketplace. And you may start by in the US or in Europe, but as soon as you grow and scale your marketplace from an international scale point, then cross-border commerce starts to interplay and becomes pretty complex. So those are some of the key capabilities that partners like us bring to the table. The funds in, the funds out, onboarding. The regulatory ecosystem around onboarding is becoming pretty complex. And again, as you scale your marketplaces, at the end of the day, essentially we're enabling peer-to-peer commerce or peer-to-peer funds flow, peer-to-peer money flow, and so soon regulatory compliance, anti-money laundering, all of those things start to play in, especially as you start scaling your marketplaces. So those are some of the things that factor in, especially when you're onboarding those unknown, in this case, the suppliers. Another thing that we have seen in the platform as you architect your platform, when you're connecting these two unknown entities, giving people the indication on where they are in that life cycle of that interaction. So notifications becomes super important. And all of these things kind of at the end of the day impact how you generate revenue and how you monetize your platform. So I'm going to talk about few ideas that as we have enabled and powered marketplaces, what are some of the few very tangible things that have helped improve the monetization of the platform, not just by enabling that basic transaction between a seller and a buyer. If I'm, renting a vacation stay on Airbnb, it's not only about how you make money from that night stay, but what else can you do to monetize and drive incremental revenue. So at the highest end, it's really about engaging sellers. So how do I make it possible for these sellers to be engaged in various different ways so that I can make them very sticky to my platform? And clearly for a marketplace, you're as good as your inventory is. So easy seller onboarding, and I can talk a few things about how onboarding is so critical in really driving incremental revenue and stickiness of that revenue and the lifetime value of that revenue from that supplier that is coming onto your platform. There's the concept of advance paying. How do you architect your platform? And I know eyebrows raised, like how do you advance pay for a service that has yet not been consumed by your consumer? Very tricky, but you can clearly imagine that if you're somebody who's renting your home or your car and somebody tells you that I'm going to advance pay you before your merchandise is even used, I think it'll intrigue you. And if you can enable that, clearly you can monetize something like that. Faster payments, instant payouts. So this is where can I pay out to you instantly. Banking ecosystems in the US already is relatively slow. In other markets, it's even slower. And so how do I make sure that I can get you those funds instantly so that your cash flow continues to stay very robust and people will pay for that. So that's on the seller side. Engaging buyers, offering things like install payments, subscription model, multiple payment options. Each of those will have significant implications from a revenue perspective, not just the immediate conversion, but really driving that incremental value to that buyer. And then there's a whole slew of value-added services that any marketplace can offer. And again, going back to this theme of fintech enabling your platform, this is where you get into slightly more complex things like offering microloans, instant loans, or offering fraud protection, chargeback protection to your larger suppliers, and taking some of that burden off of them as their business scales. And you want your sellers on your marketplace, their business to scale. That's how you're going to scale. But in order to scale their businesses, offering them additional value-added services such as fraud protection or chargeback management can be a huge significant value add that you can monetize. And then all marketplace, I think everybody's come from some form of a tech background. Marketplaces generate tons of data. What can you do with that data? So I've just given two examples that we are very actively using and really proved significant value. One is really around using machine algorithms to really drive auth approval optimization. So how do you optimize auths? Auth approval is really all about making sure that as you drive those conversions through the payment processing, how do you really optimize that conversion? And then the second idea that we have done and had some great success is how do you leverage data that you can provide back to those sellers so that they can optimize their product and significantly more so they are driving more incremental, and I'll share some examples of that. Again, just going through some of them one by one. So seller onboarding. So again, not knowing where each of your marketplaces are, but as marketplaces, as I said, are becoming more regulated, especially from an anti-money laundering perspective, and there's a lot of data requirements coming into play. But even without considering that, the basic information of who you are, your business information, your bank account information can be pretty onerous. And what we've seen is clearly with proven data that if you have a lot of that information from a UI, UX perspective, if it's not optimized and made easy for that seller, typically we're seeing up to almost 30% drop-offs. Even HomeAway, Airbnb, even in their ecosystem, they were seeing significant drop-offs happening as the homeowner was trying to list. They get stuck on like, hey, where's your bank account? Where's the routing information? And if you don't fill that out, your listing is not live. So we came up with a more innovative way where we changed our APIs, and we are calling them more staged onboarding APIs, where literally for HomeAway now, with just 2 pieces of information, your listing is instantly live. Your listing is live, it's available, so you're in business. And as you get your first booking, before we do a payout to you for that stay, we will just ask you for your bank account at that point. So now for that homeowner, he's severely incentivized to provide that bank information, to go look for that information, versus upfront when he had no idea whether he's even going to get a booking or not. So that's a simple API change we made. We broke our API down into not having to have everybody provide us with a whole slew of information while in the onboarding, but we broke it down into smaller chunks, and we just saw a significant uplift in the number of applicants that we were able to auto-approve and get those listings live on a marketplace. So that's just one idea that can help you drive better onboarding of your sellers.
Question, when
Yes.
due diligence the sellers for AML stuff? I mean,
It's extreme. Yeah. What is you have to because you are essentially doing some form of a money transfer between 2 entities. You have to have verification on who they are, their assets.
you don't need their bank account.
You do need for that. You don't need that bank account initially. You can collect it before you do a payout. So before I do the payout, yes, I will collect that bank account information. At that point, I would have run that through my checks. But upfront, when we were doing this, we were just seeing such a big drop off happening. So that's just that's lost opportunity clearly. Advanced paying out. Now it is complex, but this is an example where. Again, in case of a vacation stay, just imagine you booking somebody's home for stay in Christmas, and you book that stay in June. We are offering that customer, that homeowner, that we're going to pay you now, right, in June, and the stay is actually going to happen 6 months later. For the homeowner, it's significant cash flow coming in. He can do stuff with it. He can improve his home. He can better, do better ads around his home. So there's so much value in it for that homeowner. So that same homeowner, we have seen their affinity to list on HomeAway is significantly higher. They will invest in marketing dollars on their own to push sales through HomeAway versus any other channel that they have listed, just because the fact that they know that if their home is rented through HomeAway, they're going to get paid in advance as up to even 6 months. Customers will pay for this. The homeowner will pay for that. They're willing to pay up to 3% for getting paid upfront. And so that's clearly something. If you have the right data science in play, if you have the right structure in play, there is clearly money to be made here. This is an incremental opportunity versus just doing pay at checkout. So again, it's complex, but it's very doable as long as you've made some as your business is scaling, as your sellers are scaling. This is an area that you could invest in some data science work and be able to deliver capability like that. Faster payments and instant payouts. So this is really how do I get those funds into the hands of the seller as soon as possible. So push to card, not a new concept. It's been trialed by a number of companies. Lyft does that for all their drivers. And even the Lyft drivers are willing to pay at least up to 1% of their payouts. And in some cases, it's a fixed fee. In some cases, it's a percentage of the transaction. But definitely very, very sticky. It's very much in demand. And so this is a very simple, easy to execute idea. Both Visa and MasterCard enable this, and they are cross-platform. And so this is something we offer to our marketplace customers, where we can enable that instant payout to cards. And the coverage on this is continuing to increase. In the US and Europe, there's like deep coverage. But even in international markets like Singapore and others, we find that the coverage is now greatly increasing with payout onto debit cards. The second thing that it enables is the seller in this case, all he has to do is just the same card that is sitting in his wallet, in his or her wallet, 16 digits, no routing numbers, no complex bank account numbers to be provided, and money is delivered instantly to their bank, to their debit card, and through their debit card into their bank account. So clearly another way that it's value for that seller and something you can monetize very easily. On the engaging the buyers, so what we've seen is, besides the standard payment methods, offering installment payments especially in a marketplace setting is also something that has worked extremely well. We've seen conversion numbers significantly improve as we've introduced Install Pay, especially when your ticket size starts to grow. This is where it becomes extremely meaningful for customers to say, you know what, rather than abandoning the transaction, again, using data science at the last minute, you can make that offer to that customer and say, hey, I'm willing to take this payment over 4 easy install payments, and you can again layer an additional fee on top of it and monetize that. Now you've not only converted, but you've actually generated incremental fees on that transaction. And in some countries, again, depending on how global your marketplace is, that is the norm. In Brazil, in Mexico, almost the entire transaction is actually done on Install Pay. Subscription, I think this concept also is pretty relevant in this ecosystem. There's this whole concept of subscription economy. It works for the SaaS portion of your platforms. But also in marketplaces, if some customers are doing the same repeat purchase over and over again, which happens very often. If I look at even in a vacation market space, we clearly see it's the same Canadian customer that is booking the Hawaii trip every year. Why not offer them a 3-year package and offer that more as a subscription and charge a small fee on top of it? And we've done some testing on that also gives us an additional opportunity to monetize that same customer. Your cost of acquisition is literally nil because you've already got that customer, and now instead of selling them that same vacation 3 times every year, you just bundled it upfront, and customers will pretty much choose that type of an option. Multiple payment options. I think, again, alternate payment methods. I don't know if everyone in the room is familiar with them, but besides credit cards, again, as your business starts to scale outside of the US, credit cards and their penetration is limited in number of countries. Even advanced countries like Netherlands, 40% uplift by offering Ideal. So it's massive. So Ideal is the payment method. It's a bank push type of a payment method that folks in Netherlands use. SoFort is another payment method that Germans use. So paying attention to those payment methods in various different countries is significant. Now, within the US, the acceptance of WeChat and Alipay is on a significant uptick. So especially in the travel industry or even in the retail industry, we're seeing as you offer WeChat Pay and Alipay, you're seeing a whole new segment of customers coming to your platform. And these are Chinese customers who are coming, and they're so used to that payment method. Even on Embarcadero here, if you go to a number of the retail outlets, you will see signs of we accept WeChat Pay and Alipay, and that's really driving incremental sales. And then the microlending, instant offering a loan. So what we do with the data science right now is if we see a big ticket item, and based on various different factors, we will offer an instant micro loan for a vacation stay or for any other goods that is being purchased. Customers will pay up to 10% premium. It's pretty staggering, but customers will pay significant premium on an instant microloan, which is maybe $8,000. They'll pay 10% because they want that vacation stay or they want that particular good. And so there's significant upside revenue. Again, if something that you cannot offer, there are a number of very highly fintech-enabled lending ecosystems, Affirm, and a number of those ecosystems are available that you could partner with and offer that, and there's money to be made here, both for the marketplace and for these types of ecosystems. That's different than installment. Install payments is really breakdown of that overall, and then you're charging just maybe a service fee. Microloan becomes more of where you're actually lending somebody the money, but charging a much higher interest rate on that. So there's a little different levers on that. And then, so what we have done is even for doing advanced fraud management and chargeback management, these are value-added services we are offering your advanced sellers on your platform, and you can monetize these separately. So if your internal processes around fraud and chargeback have become robust enough, you can offer that back as a value-added service, not just for listing your goods and services on the marketplace, but you could offer that to your sellers in a whole package and be able to charge them for the platform usage. So two key things that we've done from a data standpoint is as you accumulate more transaction data, auth approval, where we are looking at transaction data, fraud and risk data, machine language data, and then really doing the comparisons on which processors. So we are using a multiple number of processors behind the scenes to process transactions. And how do you monetize and how do you figure out which processor will give you the least cost to process that transaction? And that's where we're driving higher auth approvals. So some processors have a higher propensity to approve certain, like let's say travel type of transactions, and some processors may have a better affinity to approve more retail-oriented transactions. So figuring that out, again, these are further down the road as your marketplace really scales, but looking at data and doing a lot of machine language work and leveraging data science, you can drive higher auth approvals and really drive incremental revenue opportunities. And then there's some very easy to use tools available now that will help you do a lot of analysis on your data to do anomaly detection. So how do you detect whether your transactions, whether that's on the user experience side or the payment processing side, how do you ensure that all anomalies that potentially happen due to network effects or due to processor uptime, downtime, how do you mitigate those by doing some predictive analysis and then really saving those transactions? So investing in such types of data tools, again, this is more when your business starts to scale. Investing in those data technologies also helps significantly in saving a lot of those transactions and adding back into your revenue pool. So again, I know I ran through this very quick. I've been given the big sign behind there, so I'll pause at this and just open up for just a general Q&A. Yes.
Those services are great, especially for my company. Instant pay will be tremendous. The question is, for a company like ours, how difficult is to use your technology to integrate our backend to facilitate?
Yeah, again, I'll try to be not very biased and try to sell you my services. Most of these types of services that I talked about are now enabled through API integrations with either by going directly to, let's say, some of the major processors like First Data or WorldPay, but you could work with niche platform payment providers like us if you're in the, let's say, that's why I'm, as I mentioned right up front, we focus a lot on travel industry right now, but we are now relatively vertical agnostic. But finding partners like us who have really put all our energies and sources on fintech enabling marketplaces is probably the best place to start off with and look for such partnerships where they can help you get a jump start, even if you at the end of the day want to build something like that in-house.
What's your coverage for onboarding vendors in Peru or South America?
So we personally right now are not very active in LATAM. We are doing that through partnerships, but those are very complex markets, as you may already know. And so we are in the process of extending our local entities and local relationships in these markets, but currently we offer that through partnerships. So even if, let's say, you did decide to work with a company like Yapstone, we would still offer you a single API behind the scenes. In full transparency, we will probably use a partner to deliver that, but for you, it will still be a single API integration. But on our journey, as we are scaling our business and our company, LATAM is our 2019 roadmap that we will do something locally on our own. So, good question. Right now, if I think about our Yapstone business or a vendor like Yapstone, we essentially are playing more in the B2B space. But we enable those marketplaces from a consumer perspective. So the pay-in part is the consumer part, but the payout, the disbursement part is the B2B part. And that's where, we enable the businesses, but we are also enabling the consumer transaction. So to answer your question, yes, we do play in the B2B space. A good example of this would be, supplier merchant cross-border payments on a marketplace. So that's something we would be able to enable. Okay. All right, time's up. Thank you so much. I know there was a lot I threw you guys.